falsehood to truth. Lead me from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead me from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our heart, our world, our universe. Can I now invite Councillor David Stanley to lead us in saying the Lord's Prayer?
Our Father,
What art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen.
please be seated. Apologies for absence. I've received apologies from councillors Atkins, Henley, Lees and Vickers and Councillor Colin Alcock. Are there any further apologies for absence? Thank you. Make a note of that, please. Thank you. No more. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Any prior declarations of interest made under the Members' Code of Conduct have been published online. Interests previously disclosed by members at meetings are recorded in the minutes in the White Book, which is also published online. All these interests will be taken as read. They are deemed as repeated at this council meeting. I now invite members to declare any additional interests. Thank you. Agenda item 3, minutes. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of July 2021 be confirmed as a correct record and signed. Does the council agree? Aye. That is carried. Right, we move on to Mayor's announcements. And so can I just, first of all, welcome you all back to the council chamber. This is my first meeting as the Mayor in the rightful place. So everybody welcome. Members of the council, before we start with tonight's official proceedings, I'm going to announce a series of award-winning achievements. These awards raise Dudley's profile at a national level and recognise the tremendous hard work of our dedicated employees and others in this borough. In view of limits on attendance this evening, the award winners will be invited to a suitable recognition event at a later date. Dudley Council's Project Rita, Reminiscence Interactive Therapy Activities, recently won a prestigious Gold Award at the National Public Sector Transformation Awards. The Council's Housing Maintenance Team has been awarded the Order of Distinction from the Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents, ROSPA, for the 20th year running. There have been numerous awards for public realm. Waste Services won the 2020 Local Authority Advisory Committee's Best Partnership of the Year Award and the Association of Public Service Excellent Best Public/Private Partnership Working Initiative Award. In 2021, Green Care retained a green flag status at Buffery Park, Hunting Tree Park, Silver Jubilee Park, Leasows Park, Mary Stevens Park, Priory Park, Salt Wells Nature Reserve and Wren's Nest National Nature Reserve. The Community Green Flag Award was received for the 5th year in a row at Abbey Road allotments. Green Care and Street Cleansing were recognised by Britain in Bloom 2021 with Gold Awards for Stourbridge and Halesowen. Street Cleansing were finalists in the Best Performer category at the Association of Public Service Excellent Performance Networks Awards 2021. In the same awards, refuse collection, roads, highways and winter maintenance services and street lighting were named in the Most Improved Performer category. Dudley has won a national award from the England Illegal Money Lending Team, IMLT, for our initiatives in tackling loan sharks and making communities safer. The Ministry of Defence has recognised the Council as Employer Recognition Scheme Silver Award winners for 2021. This award recognises our support to the armed forces community. Mayada Abu Afan, Head of Adults and Older People's Public Health, has received the President's Medal from the Faculty of Public Health. This was for hosting COVID-19 vaccination webinars for Black, Asian and other minority communities across the UK. Two teams were shortlisted at this year's Local Government Chronicle Awards. Balcour and the Public Health team were recognised for the successful pilot of a pharmacy-led lateral flow testing initiative. Bereavement Services were also praised and shortlisted for Team of the Year for their work during the pandemic. Our Human Resources and Organisational Development team have won an award for their approach to digital learning. The Revolution for Schools team has won an Education Business Award for the work they carried out in 2020 to support schools during the pandemic by sourcing and obtaining PPE. Matthew Watkins, a craft apprentice in housing maintenance, has been announced as the winner of the Association for Public Service Excellent Apprentice of the Year Building Skills category. And I mentioned at the last meeting that Black Country Radio and the Friends and Residents of Buttery Park were awarded the prestigious Queen's Award for Voluntary Service. And finally, Mohammed Farouk, along with our Democratic Services team, have won 2 national awards from lawyers in local government. Mohammed won the Inspirational Leader Award and Democratic Services won the Democratic Functions and Governance Award. And I am sure that the Council will join me in placing on record our appreciation of these fantastic achievements. And I don't think any mayor has ever read out a list that long. So can we have a round of applause? Do any members wish to comment on these awards? I've got Karen Shakespeare and Nick Barlow, so Councillor Shakespeare first.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Mayor. Hello. Thank you. I have that effect on people. It's great to recognise these achievements in public realm, particularly for the staff in the Directorate, who continued to work on the front line throughout the pandemic to keep our services going and our borough a great place to be. This success is something I know the teams will continue to work on and build on in the future, and I'm sure we'll see many more awards in recognition of the great work they carry out on a daily basis. It would be remiss of me not to also mention the great work that our friends groups and volunteers do in collaboration with the staff to achieve some of these awards, such as the Green Flag Award, which saw 6 parks around the borough and 2 of our wonderful nature reserves retain again this year, and the Community Green Flag Awards again at the Abbey Road allotments. The Green Flag Award sets the benchmark standard for the management of our recreational outdoor spaces in the UK and around the world. We should be very proud that these green spaces in Dudley are amongst the 2,000 across the UK receiving this recognition, and I know everyone will be working hard to achieve even more. I really must again mention the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service 2021, which was awarded to the Friends of Buttery Park. The Friends group was one of just 13 Friends groups and residents groups across the West Midlands to receive this award, which is given to their volunteer groups who deliver exceptional service within their communities, and that's a special award. And of course the Britain in Bloom, which saw both Stourbridge and Halesowen achieve gold this year. Again, an award that's driven by local community groups with the support of officers in the Council's Green Care and Street team. Our waste team were winners, as you mentioned, of the Best Partnership of the Year National Award from LARAC, and also winners of the Best Public-Private Partnership Working Initiative Service for APSI. So Waste Care received these 2 awards for their innovative agreement with TexTech, which I know you'll all have heard of, a private provider who collect the difficult to dispose items in our bulky waste services, such as beds and mattresses and carpets, and recycle much of this material as possible. Before this agreement, which was the first public-private partnership of its kind in the country, these items would have gone to our landfill. This partnership has extended further since the award, and TexTech now also collects settees, and this further reduces our landfill figures. Our street cleansing teams have been a finalist in the APSI National Awards every year since 2005 in the Best or Most Improved categories, winning Best Performer 3 times during this period. APSI Awards recognise the best in public service, and seeing 3 more of our teams as finalists this year really highlights the ambition that Public Realm have to provide outstanding services for our residents. I know that these awards give a boost to not only the teams in Public Realm, but also where we work together with our friends, groups and hundreds of volunteers who are out there every day, rain or shine, doing a wonderful job. And I'd like to give a huge congratulations to everyone involved in achieving these awards. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Shakespeare. I've now got Councillor Nick Barlow, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's great that we've had so much recognition this evening, especially within adult social care and public health, which I'm proud to be the Cabinet Member for 4. The fact that Project Rita has won a prestigious Gold Award, I think, is a testament to the hard work that has gone on within adult social care, especially around the support for people living with dementia, and how much that things such as music and faces from the past can stir up memories. And we see it in the news so often, where you have pieces of music played, and it brings back those memories of, you know, their earlier years, and they're in a happier place. So a wonderful achievement. And the fact that innovation is at the heart of what we do in this council, pushing it through, looking at different ways of providing services to make sure that they're still fit for purpose, and making them as accessible as possible. And also congratulations to Mayada and Bal. Mayada did these webinars in her own time, on top of all the work that she's been heavily involved with within dealing with COVID. So well done to Mayada, and also well done to Bal, who is leaving this authority to go to another nearby authority. So she will be missed for all the work that she has done within public health, and especially during the time of her role as acting Director of Public Health. So we wish her all the very best, but certainly the pilot scheme was hugely successful. Again, a credit to everybody within public health. And the Bloom, I mean, you know, again, Stourbridge winning gold, down, as Councillor Shakespeare said, down to the amazing work of the volunteers. It is all volunteer-led. I've been there on a few Sunday mornings helping out, and without them, we wouldn't see the efforts that we have seen over the past few months. It's wonderful. And also thanks to the teams within Public Realm as well for all their support as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Barlow. Councillor Laura Taylor-Charles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just keep this brief because there's many people that wish to speak on these, I'm sure. First off, I'd like to mention the work that was done on loan sharks. It really is our job to help make sure people understand that there are alternatives out there, and we need to make sure that we are constantly trying to keep people safe from those companies that are loan sharks. We've done really well working with partners such as the illegal money lending team, and we really couldn't continue this work without them. So we really continue to reinforce the message to these people that are suffering, that they are not alone, and that we really do have the support for them. Secondly, the teams that have been awarded the 20-year award for ROSPA, as you can imagine, in the last year, it has really, really not been an easy job for our housing maintenance teams to be out there. They have done an absolutely fantastic job around home safety, and it doesn't just relate to keeping our residents safe, it also relates to keeping our staff safe, which is really a priority for us. Special thanks really needs to go to Miles Davis and Matthew Reynolds, they actually led the presentation to ROSPA, which led to this award. So I want to say thank you to both of those teams.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Taylor-Childs. Councillor Ruth Buttrey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to speak about the Revolution for Schools team. I think this is a brilliant example of different departments working together across the council, and I must congratulate and thank our Revolution for Schools team, who probably never thought that PPE would be a huge part of their remit. They supported our schools, teachers and pupils throughout a very challenging time. With the added stress of other restrictions, the support and collaboration between the Revolution team and schools, all at very short notice, with calmness, professionalism and skill, has been noticed by our schools and often commented and thanked on. My congratulations goes to the team, a very well-deserved accolade. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buttrey. Councillor Steve Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Dudley Council's lead for law and governance and the Democratic Services team have both won their category awards at this year's Lawyers in Local Government Awards. Mohammed Farouk won the Inspirational Leader in Law Award. Diagnosed with a very rare blood condition from a young age, he's battled through adversity and continues to lead a high-performing law and governance team at Dudley Council. For Mohammed, the significant professional challenges of responding to frequently emerging and changing legislation of the pandemic was exacerbated by the threat that the pandemic posed to his health. The Democratic Services team, headed by Steve Griffiths, won the Democratic Functions and Governance Award category for their work during the pandemic. They effectively fulfilled the full programme of council meetings via MS Teams. They also helped to deliver a preemptive scrutiny process, as well as delivering a full round of school appeals. This award, is particularly impressive, as it is the first time any Democratic Services team has ever won this award. That is normally given to lawyers. So I'm pleased that Mohammed and the wider Democratic Services team have had their efforts recognised. Their business as usual attitude has meant that we have been able to keep all of our planned work despite the difficult circumstances, delivering a COVID-safe election, a full series of school appeals and council meetings, and of course ensuring that we have been able to implement and advise on the ever-changing pandemic legislation, helping to keep our staff, schools, businesses and communities safe. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Zada.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For a moment there, I thought Councillor Clark was getting quite emotional. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, there's a very long list of people that have been awarded, and I obviously can't remember them all, and I don't intend to borrow your list to go through them. But I do want to pick out a couple of key people, because I think they have been pertinent in this authority's response to COVID-19. And I will keep reminding this authority about their role, because I think the amount of personal effort that they put in during the period when we needed them most is worth reminding at every single opportunity. As much as we talk about the bureaucracy of the council, we know that it's an important function of this authority. And Democratic Services and Mo Farouk and his wider team that have been recognised, we thank the contribution that they made, because I know it was beyond just the meetings for the authority, because they were the people that were communicating with our wider partners during the COVID-19. But there are a couple of people that not only I am grateful for, but for those people that lost their loved ones. And in my role in the local hospital at that time, I interacted with them, and the amount of commitment that I saw from these two that I'm about to mention, I think I will never ever be able to repay. Balcour, in my view, is the Director of Public Health that this authority never had. And I will miss her for her contribution that she made during COVID-19. It is a tragic loss that we are losing her, and I think this authority needs to go away and see how we can encourage her to stay, if that is at all possible. Because I can tell you that she was working 24/7 trying to work through a response to a virus which was unearthing itself by the hour. So I think I couldn't understand why Bal didn't pursue a career in Dudley Council as the Director of Public Health. And I don't know where she's going. I wish her the very best. But if it is a Director of Public Health somewhere else, then I think we've lost out on a generally a very good egg. The other person wasn't mentioned. Well, I don't think it was mentioned, but I do want to mention her, Jane Catley. She's leaving this authority, and her contribution to bereavement services and her work with the local hospital in making sure not a single deceased member left this authority. There are very few people that know about it. I know about it, and a few others know about it because I was involved in it. But she made it her mission when there were the opportunities to take bodies outside of this borough. It was Jane Catley that made sure that no family had to travel to Birmingham Airport or beyond to see their deceased family. We owe Jane Catley and her team a great amount, and I want to place on record my personal thanks for what she has done, both practically, physically, and emotionally, for helping the people. I know when I was speaking to Jane Cotley about where do we get body bags from, and that was the level of her involvement, and she took it, she rolled her sleeves up, and she made it happen. And thank you so much, Jane, and I will get the opportunity. I've written to her in person, but I think this authority needs to recognise her and her team's contribution. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Zarda. Councillor Simon Phipps.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, I don't intend to take too much time, but I'd like to mention a couple of teams that you mentioned earlier. Firstly, bereavement services, and also as well, by an extension of that, the registrar's service, which Jane heads up. Bereavement services have obviously worked tirelessly over the last 18 months. They've put in regular 12-hour plus shifts. It's not just during the pandemic they've worked hard for us, it's been all the time, but certainly over the last 18 months, they have been the people that have been on the front line to support bereaved families, and anybody like myself and probably quite a few other people in the chamber whose family has had to call on their services over the last 18 months will be incredibly thankful for their work. I mean, just one particular example, there was an occasion whereby a funeral director hadn't actually confirmed a burial that was due to take place, and within a few hours' notice, our team had managed to get that to take place. So that family did not have to go through what would have been an awful experience, and that was thanks to what they were doing. And then, by extension, registrars, yeah, Jane heads up an incredible team there. She's off probably to a well-earned retirement, but certainly from my side of things, I
I was very thankful that she was one of the first officers I worked with as a cabinet member, because she was really helpful, explained everything. And as far as officers that know their briefs and know what they're doing, Jane's at the very top, and I wish her all the very best for her retirement. And then finally, it's one that's not mine anymore. Councillor Kesey's got the privilege of serving with them, but it's the commercial team who I was cabinet member for before May. So I'd probably say that the Revolution for Schools work is probably some of the stuff that I was most proud of the team when I was cabinet member for. And they essentially set up a brand new service from scratch with very few staff. And primarily it was to sell services to schools and make sure that we could bridge a funding gap, and also make sure that we could offer a better customer service to schools as well. And then with a moment's notice, under the leadership of the then director and Faye Parrott, who's the head of commercial, we changed that entire service towards making sure that we got the equipment, cleaning equipment, PPE equipment that schools needed, and we used that Revolution portal to be able to provide that. So that was a really, really well-deserved award. And thank you to all of those that have worked hard on it, and indeed everybody else that has won awards throughout the last however many months it's been for that long list you've been through. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Phipps. Can I call on now Councillor Patrick Harley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think almost every directorate has won some award over recent months, and I think that's testament to the ability and dedication of our staff, and we should all be humbled to serve this council with staff like that, supporting our roles. These awards are, some of them, very, very prestigious, but we don't need to win awards to know just how good they are. We saw that in the scrutiny report and the scrutiny process that we had at the height of the pandemic that we completed late last year. That taught us and showed everybody else just how good some of these teams are. But when you win these awards, it's not just for doing the day job, it's for going above and beyond. And I think we should be really grateful that we've got some good teams, really excellent teams within this authority. Just touching on two issues that Councillor Zada raised, I couldn't agree more about Balcour. She was the right person in the right interim role at that time, right at the start of that pandemic, and goodness knows what position we could have been in had we not had Mal working for this authority. But I can say, without going into too much detail, it was due to personal reasons that she didn't apply for the role. Happily, Jane Catley is retiring, and she's retiring to Madeira, living, I understand, according to the Chief Exec, quite well. The next door neighbours are Ronaldo's parents. So a choice of staying on in Dudley with the winter approaching, or living in Madeira next to Ronaldo's mum. I think I know which one I'd have. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harley, and thank you to all the people who have paid tribute tonight. So moving on to with the Mayor's announcements. The Himley Bonfire and Fireworks event will be on the 6th of November 2021. The Armistice service will be on the 11th of November. Remembrance Sunday service will be held on the 14th of November. The Christmas lights switch on in Halesowen and Stourbridge will be on the 20th of November, and the Dudley and Brierley Hill Christmas lights switch on will be on the 27th of November, with Sedgley being on the 28th of November, and details of the events will be circulated to members shortly. And I'd just like to mention three things at the end of this. Thank you to everybody who supported the Mayor's Ball on Friday at the Copthorne, which was former Mayor Councillor David Stanley's ball that didn't go ahead because of obvious reasons, and I think everybody enjoyed themselves, and it will obviously boost his charity appeals for when he was the Mayor, so thank you for that. I'd also like to thank the team of councillors and others who climbed Ben Nevis back in August, raised fantastic amounts of money for various charities, including the Mayor's charities, and been presented with a cheque this evening by Shaz and Steve also. And also Simon Phipps raised a really good amount of money that was donated to the Mayor's charity. And I know Ruth went up there, and Councillor Richard Boddy, who actually went the day before in terrible weather, because I was at the foot of the mountain that day. We were all quite worried, but he came back to tell the tale. And I'd also like finally to thank Steve Waltho for his magnificent effort last Sunday in the virtual London Marathon, and the amount of money that Steve has raised. I think, has it got to 6,000, Steve, and over? So well done. Our very own marathon man. So, moving on now to agenda item 5, reports and recommendations. Capital Programme Monitoring, I call on the leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, members of the Council, I move that the recommendations of the Cabinet be approved and adopted.
Is there a seconder?
Madam Mayor.
I call on the leader to... Oh, sorry. Is there any debate? Anybody wish to speak? Councillor Ali.
I'll take this off. Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is in relation to item 6, regeneration of Cavendish House and Portersfield. Firstly, I want to say that we on this side strongly support regeneration in Dudley and across the borough. However, we will not shy away in holding the administration to account. Madam Mayor, what this report doesn't tell us is that after almost a decade of progress, this Tory administration has stalled one of the biggest regeneration projects in the area, an £80 million mixed-use, retail, commercial and leisure development that would reverse the decline of Dudley Town and provide a much-needed anchor. However, in recent years, we have seen the plans fall apart bit by bit. First, the large supermarket was taken off the plans, then the cinema, and now there is no plan. When the developer refused to accept £600,000 funding from the local enterprise partnership for demolition of Cavendish House, because the funding conditions were too strict, and accepted funding from the West Midlands Combined Authority, we pointed out the risks, Madam Mayor. Earlier this year, before the local elections, a memorandum of understanding was signed with the developer, agreeing to pay £150,000 for a project manager, £450,000 planning fees. Once again, we pointed out the risks. Unfortunately, Madam Mayor, each time our calls were ignored. The leader then ended the agreement, incurring £68,000 consultant and legal fees, and some of those fees are yet to be confirmed. Madam Mayor, now we are told that there will be a one-year-long development and design competition at a cost of £425,000, which means more money for consultants. The leader then wants to hold a significant, and I quote, this was in the report, a significant PR event in April 2022, before the next local elections, to tell the public of his grand plans, just like the 10,000-seater stadium and the ice rink, plans that were no more than a headline. Madam Mayor, millions of taxpayers' money and officer time has already been wasted with loss of opportunity. Another £425,000 for the design competition, a potentially long legal wrangle, and millions for land assembly with significant ongoing annual revenue implications at a time when the council finances are already under pressure. Madam Mayor, the Tory administration has failed to get a grip of this regeneration project, and we are now faced with more dither and delay, escalating costs, significant risks, and no sign of regeneration on the horizon for this site. Dudley people are fed up of empty promises, and the leader and the cabinet member, or I should say the former cabinet member for regeneration, need to be held accountable for this failure, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. I call on Councillor Khurshid Ahmed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question relates to both Part 6 and Part 8. It's to do with the borrowing of funding. We're borrowing the funding but paying just the interest over 50 years. I'm just slightly concerned that we're losing the finances control here. We don't know what the position is going to be in 50 years. All we're paying is interest. The capital still would need to be paid back. And we're running fast in selling and disposing our assets already. And I'm just wondering what we are leaving behind for our future generation to pay the debts. How will they pay those? Will they pay those by cutting the services at that time or raising huge amount of tax? This particular borrowing, there's no reason why once we've assembled the land, sold it to developers, couldn't pay the debt off much more quicker than the 50 years. So I think that what we need to be having a look at the finance department is to find ways to ensure that whenever it's possible to pay our debts back earlier, not to keep on borrowing, because one day a generation to come will be suffering or there'll be no services that will be carried out by the council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. Councillor Tim Crompton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm really getting up to say what isn't in this report that should be, I believe. And going back to what Councillor Ali just said about the announcements which were made, grand announcements about ice rinks and whatever else it was for Dudley Town Centre by the leader of this council and others on his side. A year ago, approximately, or actually less than a year ago, about April or March, there was a big announcement in Cradley that Councillor Hari had worked really hard with the prospective candidate and now councillor for Cradley to get rid of the problems we got with the development in Collegate. We're now told in the latest newspaper that there's going to be another development coming forward. So it seems to be that it's not just Dudley Town Centre where these grand announcements are made, I have to say, very close to elections. But it's also in other areas of Dudley. What I want to know is, if such a grand announcement is being made, Madam Mayor, why have the councillors locally not been contacted? Why haven't we, as we have for I'm uncertain of how many years now, been involved in meetings with developers and all sorts of other people about the development of the Collegate area? It's really important to the residents of Cradley to get resolution to what is actually happening there. So, grand announcements. If we've got something in the pipeline to go there, then I'm all for it. But it has to be something that the people of Cradley get to know about before it's thrust down their throats. And it's got to be something that actually comes to fruition. We know the difficulties with development. We're now told by Councillor Harley something that the legal part of this council has told us all the way along in the Cradley area. You can't compulsory purchase a piece of property. A developer puts their money on the table and gets that done. Now, if the law's changed on that, Madam Mayor, then I think we have a right to know. And finally, there's a man there and his father who developed that part of Cradley quite well. They've met a lot of obstacles from this council when they were doing so. But why aren't we sitting down with them? They've done damn well so far. Sorry, they've done very well so far, Madam Mayor, in doing that. And we have somebody there with a track record of making a success of the area. Why don't we just sit down with them and get this done, rather than the pie-in-the-sky announcement that Councillor Harley has made, and which are well noticed by the people in Cradley? They're all saying, well, hold on a minute, it was imminent, wasn't it, that you were going to have this development going through? Imminent to me means you've got the plans drawn up, you've got the money on the table, and all you've got to do is set a finalised date. So can we please get something done about this with the councillors and the residents involved locally, not just some pie-in-the-sky stuff which he's used to doing?
Thank you, Councillor Crumpton. I can now call on the leader to reply.
Where do I start? Being advised on borrowing from Labour members. whatever next, Madam Mayor. On the MRP for Councillor Ahmed, it was that side of the chamber when they were in control that stopped paying the repayments on MRP for about 3 years, which added millions to the actual debt. And I think the overall debt of the council in 2016-17, when we had a UKIP group on the council, was about £100 million more than what it is today. So I don't think we'll take lessons on paying back debt from the party opposite. You build up the debt, Councillor Ahmed, this side of the chamber. pay it off. Reference Councillor Crumpton. It's all right saying you've got developers working hard. The developers have to come to the table with something that works. And I think that it may be a question later on in the proceedings where you may get your answer fully on that. So I won't steal anybody else's thunder on that. Now then, Councillor Ali, I can't believe the barefaced cheek. If I were you, I'd have kept the mask on so they couldn't see you grinning from ear to ear, because you can't be serious. You get up and say that we stopped 10 years of regeneration progress. Really? Councillor Foster, when I was region member, year after year, Cavendish will come down this summer, and we kept asking on our side of the chamber, which summer, this summer or next summer, it was this side of the chamber, with the Metro Mayor Andy Street that got Cavendish House removed. Then we get to other cabinet meetings, Madam Mayor, through you, where is the money coming from VLR that Councillor Ahmed launched about 8 years ago as cabinet member for region, and all that time had a big financial black hole in the finances. I remember Pete Lowe goading me at cabinet. "Oh, you're a good poker player. Do you know something we don't?" Well, yes, I did. We'd got the money from government, from the generic funding, to fund that gap. So then they move on, the opposition, because they can't hit us with that. They go on to something else. Where's the funding coming from for the new bus interchange for Dudley? Well, Madam Mayor, a few weeks later, we went to government and we delivered that too. This side of the chamber doesn't just start region projects. We actually deliver and finish them. And all region projects start with a funding shortfall. And over the years, you start to claw that money back in to finish them. And we do that. That side of the chamber just dither and delay, and they don't get them complete. Now, members opposite have spoke about grand schemes. I think you'll be, probably not pleasantly surprised, because I think the party opposite like to do this borough down. They're happy when nothing's happening. But, Madam Mayor, there are exciting things about to happen on this authority, within this borough. It is right that we have a pause and delay on Portersfield, that we have the right development. Is Councillor Ali really serious, Madam Mayor, that he bemoans the fact there's no longer plans to put a cinema, when we've got a metro rapidly coming to Dudley, where you'll be within spitting distance and a 30-second tram journey away from a theatre at a cinema at Castlegate? Are you really serious that we should have another cinema on Portersfield? Out of your mind, absolutely out of your mind. And the fact that the big supermarkets don't want to build there, that is due to pure economics. Now, we do have plans, Madam Mayor, for that side. It is only right we run that competition with several developers who are already interested, and that we have on the best regen side that we have left in the borough, that we have a really fantastic development that is befitting of that site with the views of the castle and the rest of the town. Reference the ice skating rink. I'm very confident, Madam Mayor, and I'll state it here now with the press in the gallery, that will happen. That will happen. And as regards the 10,000 arena, I think actually, Councillor Ali, we can do better than that. Just watch this space. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Is that all agreed? That is carried. Food and feed service plan. I call on Councillor Nick Barlow.
Madam Mayor, members of the Council, I move that the recommendations of the Cabinet be approved and adopted. And in doing so, Madam Mayor, I'd like to pay thanks to all the staff within environmental health and trading standards for, again, the outstanding work that they've done throughout this COVID pandemic, many of whom have carried on with their day jobs, but on top of that have gone into other roles to support businesses and members of the public alike. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is there a seconder? As no one wishes to speak on the matter, I call on Councillor Nick Barlow to reply. Is that all agreed? That is carried. Treasury management, I call upon Councillor Alan Taylor.
and noted.
Is there a seconder?
Madam Mayor. Mr Mayor, sorry.
The next person that does that pays £5 to my charity fund. Nobody wishes to speak on that, so... Councillor Taylor, do you wish to reply?
Easy job, yes, I will reply to it.
Is that all agreed? That is carried. We now move on to agenda item 6, which is notices of motion. At this point, can I remind members that under Council Procedure Rule 12.5, the maximum time allowed to deal with all notices of motion is 30 minutes. If the notices of motion are not dealt with within this period, they will be referred to the next ordinary meeting of the Council. And we have agenda item 6A, houses of multiple occupation. I call on Councillor Adam Aston to move the motion in his name as set out in the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The chronic lack of social housing within Dudley and across the country has led to an explosion in properties being used as houses of multiple occupation. A situation enabled by a decision of the government in 2010 to amend planning law so that planning permission would no longer be required for change of use from a dwelling house to a small HMO for 6 people or less. This change in the law took away the ability of councillors within local authorities up and down the country to assess the appropriateness of small HMOs through the planning process. Many small HMOs exist happily within their communities and cause no problems. However, some are poorly managed, bless you, house individuals who live chaotic lives, leading to ongoing reports of antisocial behaviour and crime. We have within our borough rogue landlords making a mockery of the idea of providing support to vulnerable people. An Article 4 direction gives power back to members of our Development Control Committee to decide if the creation of each individual HMO is appropriate. It gives a voice to each local community through the democratic process. Within both Birmingham and Wolverhampton, citywide Article 4 directions are in place. Dudley is sandwiched in the middle with no such protection. I've spoken to both the Police and Crime Commissioner and Dudley's Chief Superintendent, who would welcome this move. For clarity, and I stand to be corrected by legal colleagues, so we've got to get these things right. This motion establishes the principle for the introduction of such an Article 4 direction in Dudley and provides instruction to council officers and the relevant cabinet member. If passed, it does not mean we leave this chamber with an Article 4 direction in place. Because there is a very specific procedural process to be followed, the order must be made and confirmed. Both require cabinet approval. A 12-month consultation process must then follow before it is activated. So this is just the start of the process. With that in mind, I move that, since changes to planning regulations in 2010, the change in use from a dwelling house class C3 to a house of multiple occupation HMO class C4 is possible under permitted development rights and planning applications are not needed. Badly managed and inappropriately located HMOs can have a negative effect on the local community. This council calls for the introduction of a borough-wide direction under Article 4 of the Town and Country Planning Order 2015 for the removal of permitted development rights for the change of use of dwelling houses, C3, to small houses in multiple occupation. Whilst this Article 4 direction will require further work from landlords to prepare and submit planning applications for the creation of small HMOs from dwelling houses, it is not considered that this will reduce the availability or affordability of housing in the borough or increase homelessness. The direction will provide a means for Dudley MBC via the planning process to properly consider the implications of new HMOs that are created, avoid excessive concentrations and continue to monitor their distribution and their effects on the wider area. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Aston. Is there a seconder?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to second the motion, and I'd encourage members to support it. We're here tonight about to debate this motion because Campbell Street residents raised the issue with myself and Councillor Aston and the PCC when we went to meet with residents, and I'm pleased to say that the Secretary of Campbell Street Neighbourhood Watch is actually in the gallery today to hear the debate. They have a particular issue in Campbell Street, and if anybody knows Campbell Street in Brockmore, there are some significant infrastructure problems, including it being a very narrow street with cars parked on both sides, and amongst other issues that make it difficult in respect of these sort of developments to be springing up. So this is certainly a worthy motion. It's an example of residents working in partnership with police, with councillors and others to bring forward this type of motion, and I would encourage members to support it, and I do hope that Campbell Street Neighbourhood Watch are pleased with the outcome of this debate this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Councillor Simon Phipps.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I do actually welcome the motion that's been put forward and also the clarifications that Councillor Aston explained within the speech. However, given they weren't adequately covered within the text of the motion, I hope you don't mind me putting forward an amendment which is going to be distributed to members now, if that's okay. There we go. Thank you very much indeed. So, whilst that's being handed out, I just wanted to cover a couple of parts of the process, actually, which have actually already been covered in part by Councillor Aston. But firstly, I think we all agree, probably in this chamber, that the unchecked proliferation of HMOs across the borough and elsewhere in the area is certainly a concern. We would like to ensure that there is as much local decision-making as possible. And of course, hearing the concerns of Brockmore residents is very similar for residents elsewhere in the borough, in Gornal and Brierley Hill and Dudley and other places where I know concerns have been raised. So with particular regard to Article 4 directives, they can certainly be quite effective in checking the development of small HMOs, but there are some very important things to remember. One has been covered, that it needs to have a 12-month lead-in time for a consultation, and without such lead-in time, it does leave the authority open to challenge. And it also means that we could be liable for compensation claims. So it is important that we have that lead-in. This will only apply to 3 to 6 bed HMOs if it were adopted. Larger HMOs are already covered by planning process in by that they have to be dealt with by the Development Control Committee. In order to introduce an Article 4 directive, there does need to be an adequate evidence base, and so that 12-month process would involve officers going away and ensuring that evidence base was in place, and that is something that hopefully when this motion passes, the ball will get rolling and we will have a report to Cabinet to be able to start the formal process of making that Article 4 directive, should the evidence point towards it needing to be done. Another thing that should be considered, and to be fair, we're discussing it now, so there's not much we can do about it. However, it could be the case that by having this mere debate tonight, we do set off a race amongst the landlord community to open as many new HMOs as possible before the Article 4 is actually made. So we need to be very careful on that, which is why the amendment seeks to address licensing issues, which certainly, if we are able to have the powers to step up the licensing arrangements on small HMOs, I'd like to see the work that could be done on that and make sure that it's brought forward so there is a check and a balance in the lead up to such a directive. There's another point in there as well, in that the law states, the planning policy framework states, that these should be applied to as small an area as possible. Therefore, the current request is for a borough-wide. The amendment doesn't make actual mention to the geographic area, but the evidence base will help to justify the particular areas that we may need it. I do note that there are borough or citywide elsewhere, with the case with Wolverhampton. I've done a little bit of research on that one. I think since they passed it, they've had about 44 applications, and actually only about 8 of those has been rejected. One of them was rejected, and then it was indeed overturned by the Planning Inspectorate, which is another important point, is that our colleagues on the Democratic Control Committee will only be able to make decisions based on the policies that are in place and the policies that we have adopted as a council, which is why it's really important to recognise that within the Black Country Plan, a good bit, which hopefully everybody will agree on, because I know that's quite rare in it, the Black Country Plan, it will be a case where there's a new HMO policy, which we don't have at the moment, which will give the Development Control Committee the ability to be able to deal with these more regularly. However, we know that that doesn't get adopted until 2024, so we have to make sure that we respect that within the process and make sure we time things correctly. So I hope that the amendment will be agreeable. It is purely to try and make sure that we follow due process and we get this right. And therefore, Madam Mayor, without going over time, I'd like to ask that the amendment in my name, which has been distributed, is put forward for debate and vote. Thank you.
Is that seconded? Right. The discussion is now on the amendment moved by Councillor Phipps. So, members wishing to speak on the amendment are asked to indicate now. For clarity, the mover of the original motion, which is Councillor Adam Aston, will be asked to reply to the amendment before it is put to the vote. So, we've now got Councillor Judy Foster. Oh, that's an old one. So I don't think there's anybody there.
No other requests, Madam
No
Mayor.
other requests, no. So, before I put the amendment to the vote, does the mover of the original motion wish to reply to the amendment? That's Councillor Aston.
I'm happy with the amendment, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. So, members are now asked to vote on the amendment. So, everybody vote now. We do that one first. So what's that? Oh, blimey.
65, no abstentions and no votes against, Madam Mayor.
Right, thank you very much. So, I do that now. Kevin, I read this. I call on any other speakers on the substantive amended original motion. No. I call on the mover of the original motion, Councillor Adam Aston, to reply to the debate.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Right. So we move on to motion 6B. Impact of austerity. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, I've done it wrong. I will now put the substantive amended motion to the vote. So everybody vote now. No, you voted on to amend it, then you vote on the substantive. Right, okay.
64 votes, no abstentions, no against.
Thank you. Who didn't vote? Was it me? No, it wasn't. It was... No. Anyway, so we move on to agenda item 6B, which is, I call upon Councillor Pete Lowe to move the motion in his name as set out on the agenda.
Best £5 I'll spend this evening. Maybe I could recommend it goes towards the microphone system in addition to your mayoral charities. I'm going to be relatively brief, Madam Mayor, not least because I'm sure I'm not alone within this chamber that I would like to spend as little time within this council chamber, company accepted, as possible, because I'm still having great difficulty getting to the place, to the position where this council puts me under greater risk than my employer places me under. So I will get to the point. I absolutely will get to the point of it. Do not. In fact, I think that's the first time we've actually heard some of those voices from the voices to my left. No doubt you will get up and participate in the democratic structure as we go. Madam Mayor, this issue falls within two main areas. The one with regard to the issue of austerity. And to remind the council chamber, we have a well-versed motion around the fair deal for Dudley that has been comprehensively accepted by all parts of this House. And the first part of that calls for us to reiterate that view that the impact of austerity and what it has had on the people's lives within this borough. This very evening, Madam Mayor, we've seen, quite rightly, a whole range of cabinet members stand up and applaud the hard work of our public sector workers within this authority. And you just imagine, Madam Mayor, the work that could be done if it was appropriately funded. I would like to applaud, for example, Councillor Barlow, who already has joined ourselves in a joint letter to the government calling for a fair deal in mental ill health provision and health and social care. Because we recognise on this side of the House the crisis that we are about to enter. And I welcome the fact that Councillor Barlow shares those concerns, if not the language that I use, and importantly has joined me in sending down. On a personal note, Madam Mayor, imagine those people, those public sector workers who quite rightly have been applauded for their dementia care, if they could actually get out and assess my mother, for example, who was diagnosed with dementia in February and still awaits assessment. We then applaud the people with regard to the CCTV cameras in other parts of the council. Imagine if, in addition to the CCTV cameras being installed, as a result of austerity, we were actually able to fund the preventative work by fining people and taking people through the legislative process. And we've seen time and time again, Steve Clark, quite rightly, joined ourselves in the joint letter. I think it was to the Brookingshire, who unfortunately passed away a few days ago, calling for that very fair deal. So, Madam Mayor, that is the first part of what this motion is calling for. It's saying that we should be appropriately funded over 20% of our revenue since 2010 and the austerity agenda. That we should reignite that fair deal, reminder, supported by all parties in this chamber, and talk about the multi-million pounds worth of cuts that continue. Otherwise, looking into my crystal ball, Councillor Clark will be standing up here in a few months talking about the challenging time that they've got because he can raise council tax by the maximum that he can do, but due to issues outside of his control, i.e. the government's control, that there's difficult decisions to be made. I reiterate my view, Madam Mayor, we will have a mental ill health and social care crisis in this borough in the not too distant future. The second part of this motion is relatively straightforward. Many of us will be aware, or if we are not, we should be aware, of people who are being fired from their jobs and then rehired back into their jobs at worse terms and conditions of service. Madam Mayor, it's an absolute disgrace. Only last week we heard Johnson at the Conservative Party conference quite rightly talk about the challenge of this generation, which is to increase terms and conditions of service. That this country still allows the practice of fire and rehire to go ahead. It's already been banned, Madam Mayor, in many countries in Europe, as the motion outlines. We should expect nothing less then we do not want that drive within this borough of driving down terms and conditions of service through the process of fire and rehire. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Is there a seconder? Thank you.
Thank you. As my colleague has just said, the adoption of austerity policies has led to an ongoing stagnation and a reduction in the incomes of the bottom 50% of our population. Changes to the welfare system and with continued reductions in government spending to this borough means that there are ongoing pressures on low-income households. One of the outcomes of that is that within this borough, and I look across to my colleague on the opposite side, she will be well aware of these figures, 22% of our children are living in poverty. 15,000 of the children living in this borough live in poverty. And what do we have to offer them for the rest of the winter, for the rest of this year? Rising energy costs, job losses, low pay, and a winter of difficulty for all. I'd like to just quote what poverty, the definition of poverty. Individuals, families and groups in population can be said to be in poverty when they lack the resources to obtain the types of diet, participation in activities and have the living conditions and amenities which are customary or at least widely encouraged or approved in the society to which they belong. Their resources are so seriously below those commanded by the average individual or family that they are, in effect, excluded from ordinary patterns, customs and activities. That's the definition of poverty. And it goes on in most definitions to say the causes of poverty and how it reflects on people. Unemployment and low-paid jobs. Although we have more people in work now, often that work is not their way out of poverty. They are in low-paid jobs. And what we have to do is encourage this authority and the government to provide the funding to allow us to offer jobs that will pay to keep those families out of poverty. One of the quotes that I've seen and I've heard people say on the television news is poverty means waking up every day facing insecurity, uncertainty and impossible decisions about money. It means facing marginalisation and discrimination because of your financial circumstances and the constant stress that leads to problems that deprive you of your health and a chance to play a full part in society. And in the last 2 years, we've also faced COVID. Those families have been struck by, because they are in poverty, because they are in that lower 50%, COVID has hit them hardest. The impact upon their families and their incomes, and that's not right, that's not fair on them. It wasn't their fault, they didn't ask to get COVID, and we need to be doing something about that to help support them. I know that the Prime Minister's speech last week said we want to be a high-wage earning economy, but that's not going to happen in the next 6 months. In the next 6 months, the supermarket shelves will be empty. Even today, no toilet roll. No, that's the first thing. I don't know why people rush to buy toilet roll, but there will be empty shelves. There will be people waking up and having to make the decision whether they feed their children or they turn the heating on. We shouldn't have that in the 21st century. We shouldn't be doing that. I grew up in a working class household. My father worked in the motor industry. To be fair, we moved into a brand new council house when I was 3 years old, and we were very grateful for that. But we're not building those houses in those numbers to help those families. We ask the government, and we ask you to support this motion, to ask the government to give more funding to this borough so that we can help those families and we can take some of those families out of poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ridney. We've now got 5 minutes left, and I call upon Steve Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to put an amendment to this motion, and the amendment will be delivered now, or maybe not. Shall I read that out, or do you want it delivered? I'll read it out. Very good. The Council recognises the importance of the responsible finance management of the local authority finances. It is well known that the pressures on services are increasing, from mental health to road repairs, and it is vital that the local authorities adapt to the changing nature of local government financing. Since 2018, this administration has creatively and responsibly managed the finances of the authority, which has not only led to the residents of Dudley receiving high-quality frontline services, enhanced green care and increased mental health services, but it's seeing the most aspirational regeneration programme of our generation. To further enhance the financial position of this authority, this administration is committed to local wealth creation by encouraging investment into our borough, along with ensuring that Dudley is an attractive place for leisure and tourism. This council resolves to acknowledge that this administration has a duty to responsibly manage the finances of the authority to protect the well-being of the residents of this borough. Acknowledge that the total reliance on government funding is wholly irresponsible, and recognise the significant benefits to the borough which have been brought about by this administration taking a commercial approach to generate income and drive efficiencies. Now, to be quite honest, I can't believe that I'm having to talk to Councillor Lowe yet again about austerity. Austerity, the reason that we had austerity was because it was all brought in by the Labour Party. We have a deficit of £160 billion to sort out when we took over those finances. And I can't believe I'm having to teach Councillor Lowe the same thing over and over again. He stood in 3 elections on austerity and he's lost a lot. Now, I would like to pass this over to be seconded. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Oh, God, £5. Thank you very much.
Is there a seconder for this amendment, please?
Formally seconded, Madam Mayor, and I propose that we put the amendment to the vote.
It's costing me a fortune, this is. Yeah, I'll solve austerity myself, the way it's going on. Point of order, if I may, Madam Mayor. Councillor Clark, in that world that he inhabited, undertaking that motion, I think as we've now at the 30 minutes, my suggestion would be is we can have that amendment in written form, and then we can start at the beginning of the next session with a decision on whether we accept or reject that motion, and then move forward on the debate.
Yes, that's, to me, as we've now hit the time limit, I would fully support that, and we'll take it to the next council meeting. Thank you. Right, here we go. Agenda item 7, questions from members under Council Procedure Rule 11. Firstly, can I remind the Council that the purpose of this session is for members to ask questions. There will be a 1-hour time limit on the question time session. The time limit on all individual contributions during this session will be 2 minutes. All questions will be dealt with individually, one at a time. If time permits, members may indicate to ask another question during the session. When I call on members to ask a supplementary question, this must relate to the original question or the answer given. There are no written questions that have been submitted in advance, so verbal questions to the Leader, Cabinet members and chairs. I now invite members to indicate if they have any questions for the Leader, Cabinet members or the chairs. Thank you. Councillor Daniel Bevan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. for a number of years as a campaigner, I've watched councillors and fellow campaigners champion the borough. I now take great pleasure in standing in the chamber alongside fellow councillors in continuing to champion our borough. This administration is clearly aspirational in its drive to make Dudley the crown jewel of the Black Country. What better way to achieve this than city status? Can the leader join me in encouraging people to engage with the process and support the bid submission as part of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebration next year?
Presume it's who wishes to respond. Do you want to go? Councillor Harley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep it brief. Yes, absolutely. This is important. It's important to showcase what Dudley has to offer. It's important to showcase our attractions and to try and make Dudley a choice of destination for tourism and hospitality and leisure. And we've already heard earlier on in the council meeting about the exciting plans we've got, not just for Dudley though, but for Brierley Hill, Stourbridge, Halsowing. Let's make Dudley that destination choice. And what better if we can get city status at some point next year for the Queen's Platinum celebrations. That would be an absolutely amazing achievement, not just for this council, but for every citizen in this authority. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does Councillor Bevan wish to ask a supplementary question? Thank you. Councillor Jackie Cowell, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask the Chair of Audit and Standards, has the auditor now been furnished with the information he requested at the recent committee meeting regarding the valuation of land, buildings and housing stock? Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
As far as I'm aware, the auditor has been furnished with all that information. We were told that it was being furnished at the time we were at the committee meeting, and I believe that is the case. Thank you.
Councillor Cowell, do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We were told that it would be done, but we were also told that it would be confirmed, and I've seen no confirmation. I'm a little bit worried that you, as chair of the committee, haven't actually been notified whether it has or it has not. Could you provide that information as soon as possible, please?
Councillor Taylor to respond.
Yes, Councillor Cowell, we'll get that information out to you tomorrow if possible.
Thank you. Councillor Natalie Neal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Residents of Cradley are pleased after many years that this authority is taking their concerns seriously. For many years, they have been blighted with the eyesight of derelict shops on the high street. It is exciting to see work finally taking place in the area. Can the Cabinet Member for Regeneration join me in committing ourselves to taking the action within our power to make sure that the residents finally have a high street to be proud of?
Thank you, Councillor Neal. Councillor Simon Phipps to respond.
Mayor and Councillor for the question. It's very good to see you take up your seat in the chamber. So, as a resident of Cradley myself, I know just how much this actually means to those people that have been fighting for many years. So I was probably quite, well, I can't even remember how old I was when I started frequenting a pub in the nearby area to that location. And Charlie's, at the end of that row of derelict shops, the Chinese place, was my chosen place to get a takeaway. And that's been the only useful part of that row of shops for a very long period of time. They are far overdue a bulldozer running straight through the middle of them and us actually getting something done there. You might have seen me quoted in the local newspapers recently, which is probably the reason for the question, why the last development has not actually taken place, the one that was proposed before. Unfortunately, we have been let down by partners in the past. And certainly, now that we've got an active local councillor really working hard to get that done, and I say that from experience because that is my local ward and I'm expecting my local councillors to work hard. Now that we've got that, I'm confident that I've got the local support to try and push this through. My commitment is to my neighbours and to the councillors, all three of them, that we will now bring forward as much as we possibly can to get our own development off the ground there, to get those buildings demolished and to have a development of a good form that will enhance the street scene on Collygate. Now, that isn't going to happen overnight. It's took a very long time to get here, and I can't tell you it's going to happen tomorrow. However, we are working on it, I've had meetings on it, and we will be able to get plans to you in the coming months. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Councillor Phipps. Councillor Neal, do you wish to ask a supplementary? No, thank you. So we move on to Councillor Tim Crompton.
And it's not about that one. I don't think under the Council's constitution I can actually bring the subject up again. But actually, you know, it was really quite amusing, that was. I've watched Question Time in Parliament a couple of times, where you see it set up. And what I really love this time, I've done it myself, there's a fiver coming. Yeah, right. You get used to it after all the years, don't you? But, Madam Mayor, it's your haircut, you see. That's what oh! 15 quid. That's 10. I think it's wonderful. Right. Just to say, Madam Mayor, that in Parliament you can actually see them reading off the questions, can't you? And Boris reading off the answers he's been given by somebody else. This time what we had was a cue by the leader. Yeah, just to sort of nudge them to make sure they ask the question. Can I say that if we are going to get a development in Cradley, and I'll come to my question because I think it's quite right, there was almost a debate there, that we're more than willing to work with you. We've been more than willing to work with anybody that will get that damn place sorted out. But for God's sake, use us as well. Right, my question, Madam Mayor, tonight is to the Chair of the Health and Adult Social Care Committee and to the Cabinet Member if they wish to respond. I can't remember who it is, I'm sorry. The health one. Oh, sorry, Nick. Yeah. If you want to respond. On item 7 of our agenda that we held back in late September, I believe it was because months ago and behind, we were told, right, at the time of writing that, 84% of eligible residents had had their jabs. Right? We were also told, very sadly, that 799 people had died of COVID during the period in this borough, despite all the efforts of those people involved. We were also told at that meeting...
Councillor Crompton, you're now out of time. Yes, you are. This is why... But you would still only get your 2 minutes. No, this is well, you would if we knew what the question was. So we do need, and it is very important that I understand the background, I understand the rhetoric, I understand the political posturing, but we are here to ask questions. So please make sure you get to the point. Right, moving on. Councillor Ian Bevan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, may I start by saying what a challenging time we have all had over the last 20 months or so, and what a welcome sight it is to see you in the council chamber tonight, leading full council. It is these last 20 months or so that have given many of us extra time to think about the world we live in and, as humans, how we treat it. Many of my residents have contacted me over these months about environmental issues. They've taken the opportunity to speak, amongst other things, to scrutiny committees about our choice of weed killer and about the potential loss of our precious green spaces. And I know the Chamber recognises the importance of climate change and our role to take responsibility for our contribution to it. Madam Mayor, could the Cabinet Member for Regeneration and Enterprise give us an update on the current status of our carbon reduction scheme?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Simon Phipps, please.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much for the question, Councillor Bevan. Also nice to see you taking your position in the chamber too. You've been here for a year, haven't you? It's that one that's only just been elected. Sorry. Anyway, I will get on to the point. Yes, we do have the public sector decarbonisation scheme, which is part funded by the government. We are putting an enormous amount of work into that because it is an incredibly important role that we have to fulfil in trying to ensure that we meet our obligations, not just as Dudley Council, but as part of the West Midlands Combined Authority, whose Mayor Andy Street has set out the agenda that we need to be following in order to achieve decarbonisation by 2041, but also because of the government's agenda that's been put in place, which we'll be hearing a lot more about when we come round to COP26 in less than a month's time, or just a month's time now, which I'm very much looking forward to, because very much like the opposition cabinet member for these sorts of issues, I could imagine that we're both looking for some real policies and announcements about funding that we're going to have to be able to deliver on this important project. So in terms of the actual scheme, we are retrofitting buildings such as Dudley Council House, the Town Hall, Stourbridge Town Hall, the Library in Stourbridge, Himley Hall, Ward House. We're looking at schools right across the borough, and we're also looking at some of our new facilities, such as the Duncan Edwards Leisure Centre and the refurbishment at Crystal Leisure Centre, to be able to install things such as heat source air pumps. They're an incredibly important piece of technology because it allows us to use air from outside to heat buildings rather than actually using natural gases. So that project is going very well. It's a £4.4 million project, and there will be further reports within this council chamber to update on that progress as we go forward. So I hope that helps to respond to any inquiries that you're having from local residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simon Phipps. Councillor Bevan, do you want to ask a supplementary? No. So I'll call upon Councillor Adam Aston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is for the Cabinet Member for Housing. 4 years ago, and with cross-party support, Dudley's library service was outsourced to the social enterprise Greenwich Leisure Limited. Very sadly, between now and then, it's become abundantly clear that GLL is a controversial employer which adopts a race to the bottom in terms of pay, terms and conditions. Here in Dudley, pay levels for GLL library staff have diverged greatly from Dudley MBC levels. Library assistants are paid less than any other worker within the authority. In fact, the council's pay scales don't extend low enough. They're 12% worse off than they would have been. They receive less than the national living wage, no sick pay for the first day of sickness, and GLL continue an obsession with 0 hours and minimum hours contracts. In every area, the terms and conditions of those working in Dudley's libraries are worse than anyone else employed directly by Dudley MBC. A recent pay award saw arguably discriminatory action against staff who had trooped across from Dudley MBC employment, and an attempt to coerce those staff onto GLL contracts, which includes worse terms and conditions. Consequently, will the Cabinet Member for Housing support the call of unions for a real living wage of £9.50 an hour for Dudley's library staff, make this a contractual obligation going forward, and ideally give proper consideration to repatriating Dudley's library service into the authority when the current contract ends? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Aston. Is Councillor Laura Taylor-Childs to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First off, I think it's important just to point out that the change over to GLL was actually under a Labour administration, so all of this obviously would have been up for consideration at that point. However, that being said, I would happily have ongoing conversations with the Shadow Cabinet member about what our arrangements currently are with GLL. I will give no commitment here in this chamber to repatriating the services within the council. That would be incredibly irresponsible to do that. But I think it would also be remiss of me at this point to actually overlook the excellent job that our libraries did throughout COVID. They really did do a good job of making sure the communities were informed, and they also helped put on some really, really good services to help young mothers at home with some of our the bits that they put together for the Time for Twos. So the job they did was excellent, and that cannot be overlooked. However, just to summarise, as I said, I'd be happy to have those conversations with the Shadow Member.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor-Charles. Councillor Aston, do you wish to ask a supplementary?
I do have a supplementary, Madam Mayor, thank you. I'd just like to echo Councillor Taylor's comments regarding the fantastic work that the library staff have done. They're just not getting paid properly. Just a reminder that our libraries were outsourced to avoid library closures. We did that to save jobs and ensure the service, which we have a duty to provide, continued and continue. It did in the face of £100 million worth of cuts to this authority. Sadly, GLL has failed to honour a commitment it made to our former staff. But as an authority, we must also be aware of the comments of GLL's auditors within their annual report. I'll quote, "We would draw attention to note 1 in the financial statements which indicates that the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic has had a detrimental impact on the trading results of the group and the society. As stated in notes 1, these events or conditions along with other matters as set forth in note 1 indicate that a material uncertainty exists which may cast significant doubt on the group and society's ability to continue as a going concern. Madam Mayor, can Councillor Taylor confirm that this council stands ready to step in to provide Dudley's library services and protect jobs should GLL fail? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Taylor-Charles to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We will always have the commitment to make sure that this borough has a library service. In terms of outsourcing to avoid the cuts and closures, I think it's really important to bring back to the point that we've already discussed tonight around responsible financing, and that was all around the same time that many of our services were salami sliced through irresponsible management of the finances. I think we can probably have a discussion going forwards now as the finances are being responsibly managed as to whether or not we can actually continue with this service in-house or not. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor-Charles. Councillor Chris Neal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Got it right. Thank you very much. The residents I represent in Upper Gornal Wood Setton have approached me regarding their concerns about the removal of their access to Anchor Lane Tip. They're concerned about the lack of nearby facilities within the north of the borough. Could I ask the Cabinet Member for Environmental Highways and Street Services to give us an update on the ongoing discussions regarding this issue to secure alternative facilities for both my residents and the rest of the north of the borough? They're concerned about the time-consuming large distance they currently have to encounter to use the Stourbridge refuse site.
Thank you, Councillor Neal. Councillor Karen Shakespeare to respond.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I totally appreciate that the residents of the north of the borough remain frustrated following the closure and ending our agreement with Wolverhampton City Council. I can confirm, however, that our Deputy Chief Executive is continuing to review all options to offer more choice to all our residents across the borough, and we're actually reviewing options within and external to the council. In the meantime, we have upgraded our booking system for the tip in Stourbridge, which will enable residents to check online or through Dudley Council Plus for availability of slots on the same day, be able to cancel and reschedule bookings, change reservations, info such as car details, etc., and enable multiple weekly bookings. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Neal, did you wish to ask a supplementary? Thank you. Councillor Damien Caulfield.
Council recognised some years ago the importance of swimming for health and well-being, and the introduction of free swimming in school holidays was well received. Can the Cabinet Member update the Chamber on this scheme following the reopening of leisure centres after the pandemic?
Councillor Buttery to respond.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your question. Yes, as we know, the free swimming initiative that we brought in has been a huge success. Obviously, it had to be halted last year because of the pandemic. And when I have to give thanks to our leisure centre team, who at very short notice put the the free swimming back on for this summer holidays when we realised we would be able to do it, because when we assessed all the restrictions and everything, we were able to do this, and we wanted to offer this opportunity to children and families again. Many families had also contacted us and asked if we could do some quieter sessions for children with additional needs. And again, the Leisure Centre team, I have to pay special thanks to Steve Gay and his team for doing this, made sure that there were some sessions that were just available to children who had additional special needs, and that has at the Crystal Leisure Centre, and that has been so successful that that's going to continue in term time as well. So thank you for the question. I think the free swimming has been a really, really lovely initiative that this council's been able to do to encourage children to keep healthy. Also, swimming is a life skill. You know, it's a really important life skill to have, and through the data we had just prior to the pandemic was that a lot of families who were engaging in the free swimming sessions were families that wouldn't normally use our leisure facilities. So it really was a really, really popular scheme. So thank you very much for your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buttrey. As that particular question cuts across a number of directorates, I noticed Councillor Sean Casey has got his your button on. Did you wish to add to this? Oh, right, sorry. Anybody else, any other Cabinet member wish to respond? No? Okay. Councillor Caulfield, do you wish to ask a supplementary? Thank you. Councillor Rebecca Collins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a question for the Cabinet Member for Children's Services. We all recognise the importance of the working with our partner organisations and the voluntary sector. I myself were very fortunate to spend the 6 weeks holidays assisting the Fensible Community Centre with their HAF programme, which ran for the 6 weeks of summer. Is the Cabinet Member for Children's Services actively encouraging teams to work alongside these organisations to improve the lives of children in our borough?
Collins, Councillor Buttrey.
Thank you very much for your question, Councillor Collins, and welcome to the Chamber. It's nice. Yes, the HAF, which is the Holiday Activity Fund, really does encapsulate the child-friendly Dudley policy, which we have now started here, with over 4,000 of our most disadvantaged children benefiting from over 50,000 places at sessions as diverse as the high ropes at Baggeridge, football coaching, art clubs, family days in the local parks, and youth centres providing amazing sessions too. And at every session, the children were fed. I don't know if anybody had the privilege to go to DY1 and see the packing systems there. It was absolutely incredible. It's been so successful that 5 of the youth clubs are going to continue into term time, along with 7 of the school clubs. So this is, again, really important to see the legacy. This shows the huge community resilience and determination as we come out of the last 18 months and gives children hope, help and support as they face the future, which we know is so important. This was a huge collaborative team effort between Dudley CVS, and a special thanks must go to Nikki and Donna at Dudley CVS. Anybody who's had the privilege to meet them knows that they are a complete force of nature, and what they've managed to do is absolutely phenomenal. Julia Simmons here at Public Health, and Helen Ellis and Scott Jones in the children's team. This was a real big collaborative team effort. This was only possible due to the outstanding work over the previous 12 months, where Dudley provided holiday activities for our most disadvantaged children to help keep them engaged with education. And this was recognised by central government, and they awarded us the £1.2 million for this year's programmes, which will include Christmas as well. So thank you very much for your question. And none of this, but I have...
Yeah, you are. Councillor Buttrey, yes, thank you. Councillor Collins, did you wish to ask a supplementary question? Right. Councillor Chassalee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Recently, I launched the Kingsway for North and Warleaf Youth Club, and I've been overwhelmed with the support from this amazing community. I'm grateful to the volunteers such as Cassie Gray, Vicky Slater, Claire Packer, Pinky Bogart, and many others who share the same passion as myself in getting our kids off the streets. At the club, we have activities such as arts and crafts, indoor sport and a tuck shop that promotes healthy eating. We are very fortunate to have partners like the Kings Winford Neighbourhood Police Team, West Midlands Fire Service, Warleaf Tennis Club and the Kings Winford Royal British Legion who are attending this Friday. Madam Mayor, 14 weeks since our launch, we have had over 200 children registered, with 90 in attendance last week. It's clear youth provision is very much needed. My question is to the leader. Does this council have a vision to provide youth facilities for our youngsters? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Saleem. Councillor Harley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll begin by paying tribute to Councillor Saleem and indeed all the councillors who got up and spoken tonight. Most of them for the first time, and what a credit to our party they are, and how proud I am to lead this group, the largest Conservative group since this authority was formed in 1974. Well done to all of you. To answer Councillor Saleem's question, first of all, can I pay tribute to him? To start this youth group and club up from scratch, to go from having literally 18, 19, 20 members attending, kids attending, to now going to 70, 80, 90, each week adding 10 or more children attending is absolutely fantastic. That's what a councillor who is fully involved in his local community can achieve if they really want to. So well done you, to yourself, Madam Mayor. Well done. Reference that aspiration to provide really world-class facilities for our kids to enjoy. It's always the first provision that councils reduce and cut when times are hard. Well, I think this council should have that vision to provide really quality kids services, things like Youth Zone at Wolverhampton. Wouldn't it be great for this authority to have a youth zone in this borough? They're very expensive to put together, Madam Mayor. They're very expensive to run. But what an aspiration for this authority to aim high and to provide the best possible facilities for our children to attend on an evening. And that's the aspiration of this authority. And again, thank you for your question. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harley. Councillor Saleem, do you wish to ask a supplementary question? Oh, right. Carry on.
I welcome the comments by our leader, and through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to take this opportunity to invite the leader to the KNWH Talent Show final at the Source Centre on the 10th of December. Thank you.
There we go, Councillor Harley. That's your Christmas entertainment sorted out. Oh, right, okay. Councillor Pete Lowe. Your thing's on. It was. Okay. Councillor Shaukat Ali.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to Councillor Steve Clark, Cabinet Member for Finance and Law. We are all aware, and we've heard in the Chamber, how difficult it has been for everyone over the last 20 months because of the COVID pandemic. People have fallen ill to COVID, have lost loved ones, lost their jobs and been on furlough. Over the recent months, with easing of COVID restrictions, people are trying to get back to some sort of normality. Despite doing their level best, people are struggling to make ends meet and are under immense pressure during this winter to cope with COVID, as well as to meet the increasing cost of living with higher fuel costs, gas and electric bills. Pre-existing health inequalities we know have been exacerbated. Health and social care is under extreme pressure. Madam Mayor, to add to this, the government decided to cut the £20 a week universal credit uplift, which affects over 35,000 people across the borough, with over 14,000 in Dudley, over 10,000 in Starbridge and almost 10,000 in Hales Owen. And of these, 34% are people who work, are in work. Those affected will be more than £1,000 a year worse off. I'm sure we all agree that this is a lot of money to take away from many poor people working and those out of work, predominantly low and middle income families. For families struggling to make ends meet, the £20 cut is the difference between putting food on the table or going hungry. Does the Cabinet member agree with me that the government's insensitive decision is simply wrong uncalled for, and that they are out of touch with people on the ground? And what action has he taken about this, Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Councillor Ali. Councillor Steve Clark to respond.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Ali. The £20 uplift in the universal credit was put there as a temporary measure during COVID. That has now been taken away. You are quite right, we do have 35,000 people in Dudley that are on universal credit, and they will have a hard time with having that £20 reduction, but it was only a temporary measure to guide people and help people through the lockdown and through COVID. So my feeling is now, because it was a temporary measure, I think it is the right thing to do now to reduce it. Yes, I do.
Councillor Ali, do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's important we need to do more to support vulnerable people in our borough at a time when things are difficult for them. And in Preston, the council, supported by the Tory councillors, voted to condemn the government for cutting the universal credit. I'm sure all of us in this chamber would support Councillor Clark to write to the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, urging him to take immediate steps to reverse the £20 cut to universal credit and to protect family budgets. Does he agree with this, Madam Mayor?
Councillor Clark to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is actually a £500 million government hardship fund which will be out there for people that are really struggling, so that there will be some kind of help for those people that are struggling the most. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No, you can't. Sorry, Councillor Ali. Councillor Cathy Baton, I'm sorry, there was a bit of a swap. You got the wrong names on the screen. We thought it was Pete Lowe. You've changed seats, haven't you? So, Councillor Baton.
Well, it makes a change from, I'm going to refer to my colleague on the opposite side of Councillor Stanley, always getting my name wrong. So now I'm Pete Lowe. But I'm not going to call you Mr Mayor because I'm not paying a fiver. So my question is to Councillor Barlow, who is Cabinet Member for Health and Adult Social Care. Given that the Director of Adult Social Care stated in both Cabinet and scrutiny recently that a significant overspend is inevitable and that there are significant resource pressures, including the crisis in mental health provision, can Councillor Barlow give full council the assurance that there will be no disruption or discontinuation of any adult social care service in this and the coming financial year, please?
Councillor Barlow.
Sticking to the seat. Councillor Baton, I'm glad that I'm looking at opposite you rather than Lowe. Councillor Lowe, so probably you haven't said you've been demoted down the side there. Councillor Baton, yes, we will ensure that all services continue throughout the coming financial year. We know that there are pressures, and we will continue to work to mitigate those, but certainly we would not want to cut services such as dementia care or mental health services, and we will continue to keep those running as best as we can, and obviously we will consult with my Cabinet colleague as always on that. Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Councillor Baton, do you wish to ask a supplementary?
Yeah, I think it's just looking for the categoric assurance, Councillor Barlow, that the level of service that we currently have will be guaranteed to be maintained. I appreciate that you want to do your best to keep it going, and we all hope that we can, but I'm looking for a categoric assurance that that will be the case.
Councillor Barlow, do you wish to respond?
Yes, I will do, yes. Yes, I mean, in terms of our dementia gateways, we're not going to cut those. They will continue, as will other services. But again, I will reiterate, we will do our best to make sure that those services remain open. If there is any change to services, we will go through the full consultation process. But I don't envisage any of those services closing or ceasing at any time that soon. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Councillor Ken Finch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The question I'd like to pose is to the Social Services Cabinet Member. We've heard a lot in here tonight about various things and the way this council is operating, and you know there's no little problems. Now I'm very fortunate to be a member or a councillor for Castle and Priory, and we pride ourselves that my two colleagues are listening to the people. Now, we hear a lot about serving social care. Now I've been rather fortunate, Madam Mayor, or unfortunate, whichever way you look at it, in the last 2 years of seeing the way that our care workers, our social workers, how they work hard. I don't think we, such as tonight, there's been nothing mentioned about the care workers, the stress they've been under, and your social workers. Now I think we ought to, and I hope that when I pose the question to the Cabinet Member, is that she or he does respond and acts on it. My question, Madam Mayor, is our social services, and I must say that they do a damn good job. I wouldn't criticise them one bit, but I feel very sorry for them if the report that I'm hearing over the last 12 months, that they're under a lot of stress, and we've started hearing about people leaving this borough and going to Wolverhampton, Birmingham, and the question is, are they short of staff, social workers, where staff have had to go off sick? The question I'd like to ask is this true what I'm hearing, that we're short up Dudley, down the north, they seem to be better. But are we short of staff? And if we are short of staff, what are we doing?
Councillor Finch, if we're out of time, thank you. I think perhaps that could be one, well, either or. Councillor Barlow.
Seek clarity. Councillor Finch, are you referring to children's, adults or both services? Adults. Right. You're absolutely right. There is no denying that our social work staff and our care staff right across social care and within the NHS have been under immense pressure over the last 20 months. And it is only right that we acknowledge the work that they do. I mean, without them, we would be in a far worse situation. So, through you, Madam Mayor, I would like to take this opportunity to offer my heartfelt thanks to every single one of them. No matter what grade they are, they all do an equally important job. With regards to staffing within adult social care, I will get you the exact figures from the Director, and I'll make sure that my opposition colleague is copied into that as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Finch, did you want to ask a supplementary?
Councillor for giving me the... but what I'd like him to do is, later on, if he could feed that information back to me in writing, so okay, I would appreciate that if you'd do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Wonderful set of questions, by the way, before I ask mine. Picked out of a hat. I was trying to work out how we ended up with such rehearsed questions, but mine's not out of a hat. Mine's about mental health services, and I've spoken about this, and this question is for the Cabinet Member for Health and Adult Social Care. Yesterday, Madam Mayor, was World Mental Health Day, and lots of people had the courage to come forward yesterday and declare that they were struggling. And they were struggling because of low levels of anxiety, moving to depression, moving to more significant psychotic episodes. I was delighted earlier when the Cabinet Member Councillor Barlow said that innovation was at the heart of this authority. And I thought he might want to explain this new innovation that's being put forward, which is the closure of Woodside Day Centre, which is a provision for 212 attendances every single week for people who suffer from mental health services in this borough. And can I say that those 212 attendances, as he is aware, is dispersed quite proportionately across every single ward in this borough. So they're not people that solely come to the centre from Woodside, but actually a good proportion of those are. What is being proposed is the closure of these mental health services with not a
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'm not a mental health expert. I'm a lay person, as Councillor Zada, as the other members in this chamber. A consultation is starting this week and will run through October. And as requested by my opposite colleague, it's been called in to the Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Committee on the 20th of October. No decision has been made. We are looking at services in a more community-based setting. The building is not fit for purpose, as has already been referenced in Cabinet, and needs a significant amount of investment. And those questions have been submitted for further discussion at that scrutiny. None of us on either side want to close or cease a service. And what I'm looking at, and as indeed the Adult Social Care team, is looking at reprovision of that service within a community setting. And obviously, we'll have further opportunities to ask questions at scrutiny on the 20th. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Zard, did you wish to ask a supplementary?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. In 2019, 11% of the population were suffering from mental health. 2021, post-COVID, 41% of the population are now suffering from mental health. And what I would like to know is, does the Cabinet member believe that it is the right thing to do to spend money on fake grass in this borough at the cost of £120,000, or is it the right thing to do to invest in mental health services, which is the missed opportunity? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Barlow.
I know where I'd rather put the money, and that is in mental health services. I don't agree with plastic grass of any shape or form. Has it gone? It's gone. Oh, well, there we are. Can we get that in mental health services? We will discuss that in a separate arena, but certainly we do need the funding in mental health services and adult social care, and we will ensure that those discussions continue to take place. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Barlow. Councillor Richard Boddy.
Today, our numbers in the virus are 40,200. When the numbers were only 10,000 or less, we were holding our meetings online. Now, I know that we had the last two meetings, I think I'm correct, in the town hall, which is only just down there. This virus, it affects the elderly and the more obese more, or they're at greater risk. I mean, I'm getting older and I'm not as slim as I was. I had a knee operation last week in the hospital. To get into the hospital, I had to self-isolate for 3 days and have a COVID test, and then I was allowed in, and I could not take off my mask until I was by my bed. And once I got past that line, I had to wear a mask. Do you think it's wise I'm asking the leader now, do you think it's wise, looking around at all of us, that we hold meetings in here, or do you think it's best if, at the moment, we hold them when there's more space in the town hall? I mean, I like Mo, he's a nice chap, but I'm hugging him almost. And there are people, like my wife, who are gently being brought back to work. So they're going back part-time. Do you think it's wise what we're doing now? Because if just one of us gets the virus and it's spread, it may not.
Councillor Harley.
Madam Mayor, I think it's high time that we got back to us. Mayor, is this bleating? Is this bleating? And we've all seen the emails. We've all seen the emails over the last week. Is this bleating to do with COVID, or is it the fact that there are a much reduced number? Just 2 rows, Madam Mayor, they take up now. When I first became involved in politics, there was just, at one point, just 6 members along here due to a by-election in Alzo in South. Is that the reason why they don't want to be here? So they can look down at the shoes. When they look down at the shoes, when they're not offering nothing at all to the people of this borough. And we hear the bleating. But we saw them over the last week, Madam Mayor, at 2 functions. 2 functions. Stuff in the faces. There was no problems then, sitting around tables with strangers and other people. There's no problems with other members opposite, being with 25, 30,000 football fans in a stadium, or having a pint in a packed pub before the match. But when it comes to doing the job that the taxpayer pays their generous allowance for, it should be done in this chamber. And there are people out there, Madam Mayor, Madam Mayor, who will be scratching their heads thinking, why is the Labour Party in Dudley obsessed with not being in the chamber where they should be? We've all had to go back to work, and these lot are moaning about being in this chamber. It is unbelievable and shows why they're dwindled in number, and that's the place where they'll remain firmly in opposition. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Please bring the supplement on.
Councillor Body, do you wish to ask a supplementary?
That was not quite how I was treated by the NHS, that they were very, very much, we have to protect others. So I ask you again, right, having the town hall only just along there and having the numbers as high as they are, do you think it's wise that we could lower the risk and use our town hall just in case, because I believe that there is a risk? You can have a go, have a shout and get everybody having a clap, but I'm only asking, do you think it's wise as the leader? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Harley to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A hospital environment is completely different to that of a council house in its chamber. There has to be extra precautions at hospitals because most people in a hospital are sick and frail and perhaps have low immune systems. So I would imagine them looking around the room, the majority of people here have been double jabbed. That offers a certain amount of protection. So if you do get the virus, you're not so ill and it's not life-threatening. Madam Mayor, you know, it is time that we got back to some sense of normality, and the public out there expect councillors to be here debating, passing policies and doing what they are paying us to do, and they expect us to do it in this chamber, not in an artificial environment in the town hall. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harley. Councillor Sean Kesey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I didn't actually think I'd have time to... Oh. Sorry? Sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. Okay. Maybe when they hear what I'm about to ask, they'll stop laughing and listen. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't actually going to stand up because I didn't think there'd be enough time. And along with the Leader of the Council, I congratulate new councillors for standing up and having their voices heard for the residents which they now represent. I really enjoy the rough and tumble of politics. I enjoy hearing Councillor Crumpton waffling himself out of time to ask a question. I enjoy being labelled a trampolinist by Councillor Lowe in Cabinet, or he may have meant the trampoline, I'm not sure, I'll leave you to decide. But there always has to be an amount of respect between politicians of whatever party. Now, I've worked really hard throughout my life to respect people and to ensure others are treated with equality, whether that's across races, sexualities, political parties, religions, whatever it is. Everyone's got a voice that should be heard. But on the flip side, I've also been the subject of not quite so pleasant things, being called batty boy, queer. I don't think that kind of language should be used in politics. And I've also made my point, just to be fair, about comments from leaders of parties that I'm not happy with. I'd like to ask the leader, and I'd also like to ask members of the Labour group and the Labour leader who can't answer tonight. In my life, I have never ever been called scum. Councillor Harley, do you think that's acceptable? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kesey. Councillor Harley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Short answer, no, I don't think that's acceptable. We can have... that's the beauty of being back in this place. It's a theatre. And I've sat here as a quite younger opposition leader, and I've had the great Dave Sparks, like a bulldog chewing a wasp he was, absolutely tear me to pieces. But he did it with respect. It wasn't personal. And he came into my office in the opposition leader's office the next day and said, "It's nothing personal, lad, nothing personal," in his Yorkshire twang. It was nothing personal. Same with the former leader of the council, Pete Lowe. And we've had some right bennies, and we've, you know, I don't think we've ever made it to a personal level. I hope not, because he's always still asked me out for a pint. And I think that's the way it should be. We can absolutely disagree. We can have steam coming out of our ears on the response that we get from our opposite numbers, but we should be able to go out that chamber and shake hands and say, "Oh, you got me this week, you got me this time," or admit that you've been on at the end of a mauling, and you know, we'll have a good council meeting, you guys will have one, the following one. That's the way it goes. But it should never resort to personal insults like we saw recently. And I would hope that in this chamber we don't resort to that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. I remember Dave Sparks calling me a Black Country washerwoman once. Out of budget, do you remember that? Yeah, Councillor Kesey, do you wish to ask a supplementary?
Very briefly, Madam Mayor. Thank you for that answer, Councillor Harley. And as I said, I can't directly ask the Labour members and the Labour leader to answer because this isn't the forum for it. But just to follow up that, to Councillor Harley and to Councillor Zada, will you pledge to work together to try and stamp out that kind of language from politics? Thank you.
Councillor Harley, you want to respond? No. Okay. Councillor Elaine Taylor.
Can I just make two statements, please? One is that let me start again. It's sad that a member of this House is ridiculed for asking a question, and that shouldn't be right. We should be rising above that. A question is a question and it needs an answer. Right, I'll go on to what I'm here to say. Over the years, I've seen the sound system in this room deteriorate to the point where it's almost impossible. When can we expect that the sound system in this room for the members and the public be made fit for purpose? Because it certainly isn't at this point.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. And I won't say here, because 9 times out of 10, I cannot hear. So whoever wishes to respond, please make it worth our while. Thank you.
The first part was aimed at myself. Madam Mayor, just to answer the point on the sound system, I'm sure Honorary Alderman Brian Cottrell wrecked it when he dropped his drink many years ago. But seriously, this is why it's so important. And I'm glad the opposition, when we had the Future Scrutiny Committee, to look into the refurbishment of the council house and the estate. Very sensible contributions from the member opposite at that Future Scrutiny meeting about the need to modernise this building. And that modernisation and refurbishment does, of course, include the sound system here. Reference to insulting and shouting at people, I'm sorry, I assume you're alluding to me, but this is the council chamber. And I've had to sit here over the course of the last 9 years and be subjected to absolute batterings on the verbal onslaughts from the likes of Councillor Lowe and Sparks. But that is politics. And it's, you know, if you can't stand it, get out. And hopefully, Madam Mayor, next May, a few of them may not be here to have to withstand the insults and the verbal battering. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right, Councillor Harley, I was going to say, I'll come back to you, Councillor Taylor, just take a look at that screen and you can see why we need to invest money in this building. Well, I don't know, I need something. Councillor Taylor, you wish to ask a supplementary?
Is it not working? No. Councillor Harley, a member is still a member. It doesn't matter what he's asking, he's still a member. And all of the events that have taken place, I have a lot of underlying issues, but I've been to all of them. And, you know, so we're not, you should not be casting aspersions. We're not all, you're trying to say that we're not doing our job. We are doing our job. You're trying to say we're not, but I feel that we are. I do 100%. And it's about time this room was, something did happen with this room. It's been going on for so long now. When, you know, you've told me that at some point, but when is at some point, you know?
Councillor Harley, do you want to respond? Right, okay.
With your permission, Madam Mayor, I will respond directly on the Town Hall, the Council House point. This Council House has actually been in need of major works for years. Really has, and everybody here knows. And you know more than anybody just what improvements this Council House made. There was a time a few months ago when I went on BBC Radio WM to respond to the very, very real and the very, very worthy issues you've got with this council house and the way that it's not been made fit for purpose. That was the right thing to do, and it is the right thing to do to get it sorted so that everyone in the gallery, everybody in this chamber can actually take part in the democracy that we've got. When we put that forward, and I hate, because I'm agreeing with you completely, but I really hate to make this a party political point. When we put this forward not long ago, it was called by your leader Tory Towers. It was called that we do not have our priorities right. Now, if that hadn't happened and we hadn't have had to go through withdrawing that report, sending it to scrutiny, having it looked at again, the improvements could already have been started. Under my leadership of Corporate Landlord, in conjunction with Councillor Kesey, we have asked for the council chamber to be addressed as soon as possible, and we have asked for access to this chamber to be addressed as soon as possible. It's not Tory Towers, it's the home of Dudley's democracy, and we will make sure it is accessible for all, which is why I've asked for Access in Dudley, our excellent disability access charity, to come in and assist us with that project. And I can see you disagreeing. However, it's a fact. Had that not been the line that your leader took, we'd have started by now.
Right. No. Councillor Taylor. No, Councillor Taylor. No, you've asked us on the mayor's on her feet. Please sit down. Councillor Taylor, when the mayor's on their feet, you sit down. You've asked the supplementary. The 1 hour allowed for questions has now expired. So any members indicating to ask a question can either send it in writing or raise the question at the next appropriate meeting. There is no any urgent business, so that concludes this meeting of the Council. Can somebody get rid of all that? And that.